हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार। हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार। हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार। प्रेम का सौदा न कर, दिल से दिल दरिया तू बन, प्रेम का सौदा न कर, दिल से दिल दरिया तू बन। दिव्य प्रेम के प्रकाश को, दिव्य प्रेम के प्रकाश को, दिव्य प्रेम के प्रकाश को बना अस्तित्व का आधार, बना अस्तित्व का आधार। हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार, बेहिसाब लुटा दे प्यार। हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार, हृदय मेरे तू बन उदार।
Namaste, my dear brothers and sisters. The love and blessings of the Mother and Sri Aurobindo to all of you from Sri Aurobindo Ashram Delhi branch. This devotional song in the melodious voice of Michu Pal, Behisab Luta De Pyar, is on generosity, one of the 12 virtues in the mother symbol in the outermost circle. Generosity can be both the means and the effect on the path of yoga. The most important thing while walking the path of yoga is love. And that love has to be expressed. And that love has to be expressed by giving. And that giving should be generous. So it is a means. And as one progresses on the path of yoga, one becomes more generous. And in that sense, it's also an effect. And says, Behisab luta de pyar, without any calculations. Love does not calculate. It's from the heart. It's only the head that calculates. And therefore, it does not enter into a business. Prem ka sauda nakar doesn't enter into a business. This is how much I have received, so this is how much I will give, or this is what I am giving, and in return, I expect a lot more. That is not the sort of calculations into which love and its expression goes. And after all, what can we give? We can give only what we have received. And we have received it from the ultimate giver, and that is the divine. And that is expressed so beautifully in one of the couplets of, I think, Kabir, in which comes that beautiful line, Tera tujhe saunp kar kya lage hai mera. If I return what I received from you only, what is it that I lose? What is it that I'm actually giving? Now about today's speaker, we are very fortunate to have with us Dr. Mankul Goyal yet once more. Dr. Mankul Goyal is an integral part of the YES team, and he is a dermatologist with both an MBBS and an MD from the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, New Delhi. But he's a dermatologist with a difference. He practices dermatology not just by having a quick look at the place where the skin has some problem and then prescribing an ointment or a lotion. Instead, he goes into what is behind that lesion, what is it behind what the patient's immediate complaint is, and he's to be able to discover it in the mind of the patient, in the diet of the patient, in the daily routine of the patient, and he takes care of all these things while talking to the patient. And that's how he ends up spending at least half an hour with each patient, because he goes into all this. In other words, he's practicing integral wellness, sort of the type of medicine that leads to integral wellness, total looking at the totality of the person, and then taking care of the immediate problem as one of the things that will help the person, but along with that, also taking care of many things which will make the patient not only get better, but also feel better and prevent many problems which could have otherwise occurred sometime in the future. So that is the type of skin specialist he is. With that introduction, I hand it over to the speaker. We'll be speaking on the microbiome, which is one of the latest ideas in modern medicine, still developing, and in a way leading to a convergence between modern medicine and ancient wisdom. Dr. Mankul Goyal, please.
Thank you, sir, for your generous words and your generosity. And thank you to Mittupalji for the beautiful song. And I love the expression, Dil se dil darya tu ban, and how our expansion of the heart lies in connecting to more and more hearts and being in the heart space of others. And through that is the source of our expansion and becoming into a darya. So I'll start the presentation for today. I hope everyone can clearly see this, and I'm clearly audible as well. Yeah, so I'll start. So microbiome, as Dr. Bijlani just introduced, is a beautiful topic in today's day and age, and it is a very beautiful paradigm which is emerging, through which we can see our own health, we can see the world, and also oneself. That who am I is also some questions which microbiome helps us answer. So to start with, it might be good to look at what are the paradigms that microbiome word or microbe word has taken in the history of at least the modern science. It would be inappropriate to say that microbe has only been explored by modern science. Ayurveda has its mention of pathogens and microbes in its own way. But since I'm speaking from the perspective of allopathic science and modern science, the discovery of a microbe somewhere started with the microscopes or early in 1670s, and especially later on in 1800s when Robert Koch gave a paradigm to humanity that microbes are these individual unsocial organisms which are present and which invade a host and then produce a disease. It was a major paradigm shift, which was also useful in many ways, but also it is something which we carry all the time around us nowadays, that, oh, there is some microbe waiting to invade me at this moment and cause disease in me. So, but this is how the paradigm of germs or microbes was initially seen, that they're single acting, unsocial organisms causing disease. And as the paradigm expanded further and the science got deeper into it, it was understood that they are not individual unsocial organisms. Well, they may be harmful to human beings, but they are strongly interacting microbes which have the capacity to form strong networks and colonies. And so just like we have human colonies, they also form into these colonies where they live together, they coexist, they protect each other. And a prime example in allopathy, we call it biofilms. They kind of form a film which is strong and protective around themselves and within themselves. And they coexist in colonies of biofilms. So the paradigm expanded there. And then now, as we have further researched and further gone into the depth of this, the One Health concept has emerged. And that is the beauty of things, that no matter what we go into the depths of, eventually we end up with oneness in some way. And the One Health concept implies interconnection of all areas of life through their respective microbiota. So there are microbes everywhere within us, around us, and they're constantly interconnected and communicating with each other. So this is the newest paradigm with which one can look at microbiome. Since we're going to talk in detail about microbiome, it might be good to start with a definition of what what are we referring to when we talk about microbiome. And here also there have been gradually evolving definitions. One of the first and the acceptable definition was a microbiome is the ecological community of commensal, symbiotic, and pathogenic microorganisms that literally share our body space. To go over this definition bit by bit, it's an ecological community which we just talked about. They're coexisting in an ecosystem. And then in that there are commensals, which we may look at neutral or kind of neutral microorganisms staying with us, sharing space with us. And then there are symbiotic organisms which share a much stronger bond with us, and they create friendly substances for us which help nourish us and help us grow, protect us. And in process, our body also provides them with the same. And then there are also pathogenic microorganisms which are kind of directly or indirectly causing harm to our body. So a microbiome is a combination of all of these and them living together in an ecological community and sharing our body space. And when we say body space, it is every possible space. It is our skin, it is our gut, it is our large intestine, and now we're talking about brain. So microbiome is everywhere in the body. So, and the next definition on further evolution not just included them as cellular beings. So when we talk about these microorganisms, we refer to bacteria, we refer to fungus, we refer to viruses. So not just the sum of microbes, but also their genomics or their DNA or their genes put together. And we will be looking in a short while why it is important to look at it from that perspective. Why include the DNA of these microorganisms in their definition. And then the next definition goes even further by calling them as a sum total of not just the microbes, but their DNA and genomes, and also all the substances that they produce, all the proteins and chemicals put together that they produce. So this is something which it's kind of a chart which shows what we just talked about. The microbiota can include bacteria, fungi, algae, everything, and their theater of activity, all the proteins, DNA, RNA, and fats, whatever they are producing, and their metabolites, toxins, whatever they're creating, that whole is what we are referring to as microbiome. So that is how we define it in today's day and age. So coming to what we just referred to, why include the DNA and why such importance to DNA? And since we are here in yes, so it is also good to offer a spiritual perspective or an energetic perspective to everything. And it is beautiful how somebody in 2011 did a study looking at DNA is a fractal antenna. If we just look at DNA, it's like a spiral of two strings, and it can be likened to an antenna or to a sitar or an instrument which is constantly producing a vibration. And they talk about how it also emits biophotons all the time. It is constantly interacting with its environment through electromagnetic fields. It is also releasing biophotons. Photons we call as little light particles which come out of sun, and which sun is the most common example. But any source of light emits these photons or lights through which it illuminates the environment and also interacts with the environment. And here there is talk on how DNA also produces biophotons, which are substances which are source of interaction between one microorganism and another microorganism. So to give a visualization of DNA being a string which is producing vibrations and biophotons and communicating with its environment through it. And then here are some numbers to build up the paradigm that there are about 10 to 100 trillion symbiotic microbial cells. So these are those happy coexisting microorganisms with us, which share a relationship of symbiosis with us. And then there are greater than 10,000 species of different microbes that have been identified. And then the most important figure, that is that the genes of the microbes outnumber our genes by 100 times. So the DNA of the microbes, so it's good to look at these strings of vibration of the microbes being 100 times more than our own strings and vibrations that we are producing. And that is the most staggering fact that science has thrown at us. And that really brings us to the question that who am I, even at a physical level? Do I see myself just as this physical body, or there is is this an illusion? There's a lot more of these vibrations that we are emitting, which we may not just call as our own. There are all these microbes which are together with us, and we may visualize it as a collective vibration between us and all the microbes that is being emitted at every moment through this body-mind complex that we call as us. And it may also be likened to an inner universe in itself, where there is a constant communication in different parts of our being through this vibratory DNA. The next question that is in front of us is that if we are calling that these microbes are constantly interacting with us, each other, and with the environment, does a shift in microbiome impact our inclinations? Does it impact what kind of vibe we throw out into the world? One of the simplest example to this that comes to my mind in our day-to-day practice, not actually referring to microbes, but to parasites, worms. We see a child who is intensely craving for sugar. And if he has extra worms in their system, and the moment we give them a deworming tablet, within a day or two, we see that their sugar cravings settle down. So this is a very typical example of how our inclinations change or shift the moment the microbes or parasites within our system shift. So one person may end up saying, oh, this child is so craving for sugar, what's wrong with the child? But it's not just about the child. It's also about the microbes and parasites creating those inclinations or vibrations within us. The next question that arises out of the same example is, how do we look at these microbes? Do we call them they're good, they're bad? We call them they're friendly or unfriendly. Are there a few types of microbes? Are they fixed or they're dynamic? Whichever one is good, is it always good? Or whichever one is not good, is it always not good? So these are some questions which commonly arise within us, and probably one way to look at them, as in the definition as well, is to look at them as a continuum. There are some which are relatively neutral. There are some which are strongly beneficial to a human being, and there are some which are actually not useful or not helpful. They may be pathogenic. And it is not about only having the good bacteria and not having any bad bacteria. And that's again what spirituality also talks about, not getting caught up in the duality of life, but being diverse. It's like a healthy jungle is a jungle which has diverse species. There are numerous species, and the more numerous the species, more likely is for that jungle to survive and be healthy. And the same way, it's good to be diverse and versatile as an individual and have a huge diversity of microbes within a system. And we see that in science. Say, for example, there is a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori, which very often colonizes the stomach of people. And those people who have this, they tend to have a lot of acidity related issues, reflux, heartburn, sore throats, and a whole lot of other issues. So when the microbiome of their stomach is studied, it is observed that those who do not have H. pylori have a much more diverse microbiome in the stomach. And those, when they colonize with H. pylori, it largely gets limited to that, and all other microbes are excluded or eliminated or are left to a very small percentage. So this diversity is very important, and it's not about just having good, just having bad, or friendly, unfriendly. It's just being about diverse. And the next question is the microorganism which is friendly will always be friendly, or the one which is unfriendly will always be unfriendly? But to give a simple analogy, if you put 5 people in a room and you put a nice soothing environment, a nice music is playing, they're more likely to have a friendly conversation with each other. But if we create a very unfriendly or chaotic environment in a meeting, we play music which is unfriendly or with negative vibrations, it's more likely that those same individuals might end up with a fight. So in the same fashion, in the body as well, one of the simplest examples is an alkaline environment. The more alkaline the body is, the more likely for the body to have a friendly conversation with the microbes, the same microbes. Whereas the more acidic the body gets, then it is more likely to be an unfriendly interaction with them. It is a kind of an oversimplification, but the idea is to impart the message that not to look at microbes in a fixed way. They are also dynamic beings like we are. We have the capacity to be at our best, and we also have the capacity to be at our worst. So to look at them also as dynamic beings. So this is one example to show and how the aspect of homeostasis or balance is emphasized here. And on this side, in the left, they have talked about certain microbes, Bacteroides and Clostridia, a certain type, which is helpful to us. What it does is that it takes in the undigested fiber that we eat in the food, it breaks it down into short chain fatty acids. And these short chain fatty acids are some of the best anti-inflammatory medicines that our body makes for itself. We talk about painkillers, we talk about steroids, we talk about so many things. But the beauty of the body is that it takes up undigested fiber from fruits, vegetables, grains, and it converts it into these short chain fatty acids, which are the best anti-inflammatory medicine for the body. So on one side, there are these organisms which are doing this. And then there are these proteobacteria, or it's just a name, but there are certain microbes which will go into the system and they will trigger the inflammatory cascade. They will trigger a fire in the body. So, and the Bacteroides and Clostridia are go down because of use of antibiotics and other things. We'll be talking about them. And hence the balance is shifted. And this is how the body can suddenly go into a fire by change of the or shift of the microbiome. And we call this state as dysbiosis, a sort of a unhealthy biosis or unhealthy microbiome. The term used for this is dysbiosis. And nowadays, it is looked at as the cause behind most disease, or one of the key factors involved in most disease, whether it is obesity, whether it is diabetes, allergies, heart issues, aging, Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, which is a brain condition, blood pressure issues, liver cancer, autoimmune disease of any kind. Now here it is important to understand that for a long time, when we talk about obesity or diabetes, it has been looked at as a calorie issue, that, oh, the person is eating more than they should, and that is over accumulating, and that is translating into fat. But what we are seeing these days very often is people are not eating too much, and yet they are gaining weight day in, day out. And one of the reasons is that the new model of obesity or diabetes or these things is inflammatory, what we just talked about. The body is on fire and it is going on accumulating fat in some people, or some people get very lean. And all these disorders are a result of inflammation, which a lot of it stems from dysbiosis. And what has also happened in science is that they have been able to discover, to a degree, a signature pattern of microbiome or dysbiosis in different disease. And that in liver disease, so and so microbes are more likely to be higher. And in obesity, so and so microbes are more likely to be higher, and so are likely to be lower. Although it is still an evolving science, but such signature patterns are emerging for people. And one simple example that comes to mind in my day-to-day practice, which I talk about to patients, is the psoriasis. Psoriasis is a skin condition where people develop these scaly patches all over their body. And the signature microbiome of psoriasis and the signature microbiome of a person who is consuming alcohol very frequently are very similar. And what has clinically translated and has been an observation of doctors for years, well researched, is that alcohol aggravates psoriasis. And it is so nice to see it from a microbiome perspective that psoriasis microbiome and alcohol microbiome are similar. And when these two things come together, they create an even bigger fire. So these are some examples or practical applications that we are having these days of an understanding of what really dysbiosis means. And another very interesting topic is how gut microbiota links to psychiatric illness. And one of the common study that I love to quote to patients is of a study on a happy rat and a sad rat. That you take out the microbes of a sad rat and put it in the happy rat, and he becomes sad, and you take out the microbes of the happy rat and transplant it into the sad rat, he becomes happy. So what we call as our emotional state also so much is dependent on the microbes. And there are signature microbiomes which are patterns emerging for depression. I have a friend who is an integrative psychiatrist, like I'm an integrative dermatologist, and her focus in patients of schizophrenia is constipation. She sees that the delusions or all the things that are happening to the patient are immediately triggered and increased the moment the patient gets constipated. So, how important it is to keep the gut clean and the microbiome healthy is so very important in all psychiatric disorders. And this correlates very well with the Ayurvedic understanding also, where the seat of a lot of mental disorders is in large intestine as per Ayurveda. And then another trend that we are observing in the mankind over the past 20 to 30 years is a rise in the fungal microbiome. It's a sad thing to say, but इंसान को fungus लगती जा रही है because of the kind of habitat that has changed, the kind of electromagnetic fields we are exposed to, the number of antibiotics which kill a lot of good, healthy bacteria in the gut, and pollution, our thoughts, emotions, living indoors, because of various factors, understood and not understood, living in buildings which are old and have humid walls. Because of various factors, the fungal microbiome has gone up in humanity, and we are seeing almost in every disease and a large component of fungus. I used to see acne and used to give antibiotics 10 years back, and now it's largely fungal in nature, the acne that people get. So, and this is translating into almost every aspect. And we talked about COVID also, how people were getting the black fungus. So it is another trend which is emerging in the microbiome of the humanity and the environment, that the fungus seems to be on the rising trend. And so, having talked all about the microbiome, what it is about, and how it is impacting us, how it is important to take care of the microbiome, the next question in front of us is, how do we take care of it? What can we do in order to have a healthy, diverse microbiome where there are more healthy and friendly bacteria than unfriendly ones? So here also, just like we say we have the soul and the ego, and it is if we feed the soul, that part expands, and if we feed the ego, it's the ego which expands. So same way it is in terms of whom do we feed in the microbes. The unfriendly microbes love sugar, they love refined carbohydrate, it loves its pizzas and burgers, packaged foods, all these things which are low on fiber are things that the unhealthy microbes love to eat. And then there are these, as I said, that the main food of healthy and good bacteria in the gut is undigestible fiber. It is that part of the food which we actually do not assimilate, is what they like, the fiber in the food, and which the source of that is all the vegetables and fruits and whole grains. One of the things that has happened to the humanity over the years is out of taste, we have gone about refining the grains as much as possible, and in process we lose a lot of fiber out of it. And then plant-based protein, too much of animal protein is also something which healthy microbes do not enjoy, and plant-based protein is another thing which they like. So that is one aspect. And the second aspect, just like we want a diverse microbiome, there also has to be diverse foods. If we are just eating the same thing over and over again, we get a certain kind of microbiota. If we are changing it up very frequently, and just like we had Navratras and how we change it up, the microbiome, it has a huge impact on the microbiome by doing that. So being versatile and eating a lot of different things also is very helpful in maintaining a healthy microbiome. Then we talk about the concept of prebiotics. So we talked about healthy microbes, and they may be likened to the term probiotics, which are good bacteria. But there's something called prebiotics, which we just discussed are the food of the healthy bacteria in the body. And some of the best foods rich in prebiotics that have been identified are garlic, onion, underripe bananas, raw honey, whole grain, and tomatoes, carrots, coconut, apples, and many others. We'll be talking about them more. But these are some examples. But broad image I've given you that it's anything which has a good amount of fiber in it, is also and a wide variety of vegetables and fruits and whole grains is what we need to eat as a source of prebiotics for us. But there are some things which are also prebiotic killers. So if these foods are combined with these, then they lose their effect. For example, tea, caffeine, and aerated drinks. When they're consumed along with it, the prebiotics do not act. When we take antibiotics, it immediately kills off a lot of good bacteria. And there's a study on one of the common antibiotics that how once you take one course of that antibiotic, your body takes a few years to recover from the impact of that antibiotic, or to develop that same degree of diversity. It takes the body about 2 to 3 years. And how often at the drop of a hat, we can consume antibiotics. Alcohol has the same effect. Smoking, sugar, lack of exercise, emotional stress, over sanitation. We will be talking about it. Poor sleeping habits, and unhealthy fats, refined fats, is another thing which contributes to it. Now, coming from prebiotics to probiotics. Probiotics are those foods which are a source of these healthy bacteria for us. And talking about an Indian list of probiotic foods, which we can eat day to day in our day-to-day life, whether it's idli, dosa, dhokla, all these are fermented foods, paneer, curd, buttermilk. But even if a person follows a vegan diet, it is not necessary that very often we feel that curd is the only source of probiotic, but we have so many others. We have idli, dosa, dhokla. Pickles are a very good source of probiotic. Honey is another, has a wide-ranging probiotic. But kanji, you can Google kanji and how it has been a summer drink for us for so long. And a gruel. So it's like we have the millets, and amongst the millets there are ragi, jawar, bajra, and then there are Shridhanya millets, which are positive millets. They are a group of grains which need very little water to grow. Kodo millet, proso millet, samak, little millet, pearl millet. So, I mean, these are a group of millets, we call it Shridhanya. They can be churned and soaked and left overnight to ferment. And then one can make a kind of a gruel or a khichdi or a vegetable khichdi out of them. It become, and the advantage of these millets is that they are about 10% fiber. And when you leave them in water, that fiber swells up. So they kind of become 25 to 30% fiber. And then they are fermented. So they become a very good combination of prebiotic and probiotic for the body. And to refer to the man who has been selflessly spreading the word on it, Dr. Khadar Wali, a wonderful scientist who has talked a lot about it and has helped many cancer patients to almost every disease with the simple solution of consuming gruels of these positive millets, and how beautiful an impact it can have on our overall health and heal almost any disorder. And then there are some good inspirations from the East India. Sorry, not the East India, but the Asia. There are some other good foods, kombucha, kimchi salad, and miso soup, which Indian culture has now embraced. And they are also a very, very good source of probiotic. So another key interesting fact to share is that one may ask, oh, how much time does it take when I change my diet for my microbiome to shift? And the staggering fact is that within a day, within 24 hours of the shift in diet, the microbiome shifts. So it is how quickly the food can have an impact. And this gives us a lot of faith to us in nutrition playing a major role in healing of an individual. We have talked about dysbiosis contributing to every possible disease. And here we are talking about one day's diet change having a huge impact on the microbiome. So the capacity of nutrition in transforming us is huge. And then also the other fact which is around it is that one course of antibiotic may take us years to restore the microbiome. And then, having talked about food, there are also these capsules or powders of prebiotics and probiotics which are available now to the mankind, and they are in a way a future of medicine. It's a I won't say the perfect, but a more positive approach to health, wherein those healthy and friendly microbes are being identified. It's like if you have an unhealthy universe of vibration, you plant those positive vibrations and then you find ways to feed it. So it's not such a bad approach. It's science is moving towards offering a more positive solution to these things. But again, not to intellectualize it too much, because then again it goes into specificities of this and that and how much to give. But just this whole idea of taking even a little bit of these capsules is not such a bad thing. It can be actually very helpful from time to time for an individual. And in India, there are less, but all across the world, there are also earth-based probiotics which are available. So these earth-based probiotics are also very helpful because they, here the intellectualization is not happening so much. And because the source of the microbiome, the first source of the microbiome for a child is the mother. And after that, a common source is the nature or the soil. And जो बच्चा मिट्टी खाता है, that is not such a bad act. It's very helpful to the child in building up a healthy microbiome. So soil-based probiotics are also a future of medicine. Now, coming to the impact of emotions on gut microbiome, and there is a lot of data emerging on that also, because emotions are also vibrations, and microbes have their own vibration emitted from their DNA. So talking from a scientific perspective, there is research which has highlighted that negative emotions in people with negative emotions being predominantly experienced, there are certain microbes which are growing. People with positive emotions, there are certain microbes which are growing. And so that has been shown to a degree. I happened to, a few years back, read a book on theta healing, where they talked about how each microbe is associated with a certain kind of belief systems and a certain kind of emotions. and they are attracted towards an individual with a similar, or a complementary, or a similar kind of emotions and belief systems. So the concept of law of attraction, and like attracts like, and it has really helped me practically in translating this into my practice, because we very often see there are some people who will keep getting similar infections again and again. One thing is just to tell them, oh, maybe your immunity is weak, but to be able to see what is that emotional and belief system pattern within them through which they're attracting those similar kind of microbes is also important. And some of these belief systems which we often discover is parasites growing in people who have a difficulty saying no to others. So they are being parasitized. Fungus carries emotions of anger and resentments. So, although these cannot be expressed very linearly, and it would be inappropriate to generalize them, but it's something to ponder upon whenever we are getting, or anyone around us is getting an infection of a kind repeatedly. That what are those kinds of emotions and belief systems that we have, that we attract or attune to the frequency of that microbe. Similarly, there is another study which showed this. And then coming to the skin microbiome, me being a dermatologist, would like to speak a little bit on the skin microbiome. And it is present everywhere. So skin is actually, apart from the gut, one of the largest house of microbes in our body. And here also there is a huge variety varying on different areas. There are some areas which are more oily, there would be different microbes. Some areas which are more dry, some areas are more, you would say, more moist. So depending on that, there are different microbes which are growing. And they are hugely impacted with what we put on our skin. What are we using as a hand wash? What kind of soaps are we using? Chemicals, sanitizers, versus using more the nature substances. How does a mud bath heal a person in a naturopathy place? And how different kinds of nature substances, honey, curd, application, can apple cider vinegar, and so many other of these substances can have a beneficial effect on the microbiome of that individual. And through that inspiration, now even in medicine, now we have creams which have prebiotics and postbiotics added to them to make them more effective. So moisturizers with probiotic moisturizers, prebiotic moisturizers are coming into the market now. It would be a nice time to talk about COVID and COVID times. As a dermatologist, I saw a lot of patients with hand allergy or hand eczema developing, and these were people who were really scared of COVID. And being scared of COVID, they were sanitizing themselves very frequently and using harsh soaps on their skin. So the way I used to love to counsel, what would come to me was a triad of attitude towards these microbes, and I would tell patients that if you want to protect yourself from COVID, one thing that you need is to reduce the inoculum or exposure to the COVID. So for that, what you do is you wash your hands, or take care, or protect, take precautions. But that is not the end of it. The second thing that you need to do is to protect your barrier. If by using strong chemicals, your barrier itself is getting impacted, then even a small amount of inoculum can get in much more easily. So it is important to take care of your boundaries of your barrier and love it. And the third thing I would tell the patients is to be grateful to microbes. Because sometimes when we go into this consciousness of this germ theory that these are the things which are here to kill us, and we forget that these unfriendly microbes are very few, but in process we are also impacting a lot of friendly microbes within our system. So being grateful to microbes as overall is also very important. So a triad of reducing inoculum, loving the boundaries and taking care of the barrier, and thirdly, to be grateful to microbes. If one keeps that triad of attitude in one's mind, people found it much easier to let go of sanitizers and hand washes and Dettol and Lifebuoy, and being marketed as the things which will sanitize us completely. So yeah, and it really helped people. Another key aspect is we talked about the role of emotions and food, but the role of magnetic fields, the mobile phones, the Wi-Fi, the towers all around us on the microbes. So they are also having a huge impact on the microbiome of an individual, and they need to be accounted for. And what kind of an electromagnetic field we live in is also something to be acknowledged and taken care of. There have to be more and more constructive solutions which have to emerge on this front as well. And then it's like exercise, yoga also has an impact, and it diversifies the microbiome. Those people who exercise and do yoga have been shown to have a more diverse microbiome. And then other key things, but actually the simplest and the best, is being close to nature, being in a park where we are constantly interacting with the diverse microbes, human being in their own nature, being close to animals, taking a good sleep is also very helpful in maintaining that microbial diversity. Now, coming to taking a view from a doctor's seat, the approach to microbiome, these, what we mentioned, are general health approaches one can take to, everybody can take to take care of their microbiome. But what about doctors? We are constantly facing patients with disease where we know that microbes are playing a role in that disease, where we know if we give them an antibiotic right now, it is going to help them alleviate their pain much faster. We are facing this pressure of outcome from patients, pressure of proving ourselves, pressure of competition, pressure of patients wanting to find relief very fast. And in that process, very often as doctors, we can get short-sighted, and it would be inappropriate for me to talk about others, but to honestly acknowledge that I myself engage in it to a certain degree. But it is also about being able to see, offering them quick antibiotic solutions, quick answers is sometimes what we do. But it's also important at that time for a doctor to be courageous and to be able to share the bigger picture with the patient, spend time, explain everything to the patient, and allow them to make the best possible choice for themselves. That, hey, you may take more time to heal, but you're likely to do yourself more good. You are likely to be more happy and satisfied that you made a wise choice for yourself by avoiding the antibiotic and rather allowing the disease to pass and save and keep your microbiome healthy and not choose antibiotics. But having said that, it would be inappropriate to see antibiotic also as an evil thing, because everything in the universe has its own role. And the way I personally like to look at them is that the approach of masculine versus feminine. Sometimes you have to hit hard and go with the antibiotics, and then take up the feminine approach of a gentle healing with probiotics, with diet, with so many other things. And so both are somewhere part of nature, whether it's a masculine approach or a feminine approach. And there, finding the balance is the key. And there also, sometimes we have to answer the question, do we take a masculine approach first or do we take a feminine approach first? And both has its own pros and cons. We go with the antibiotic first, we go hit hard, we may get quick relief, but in process, there is a lot more damage to the microbiome. But if we take a feminine approach first, the person chooses to go with the dietary modifications, take care of their lifestyle, and observe how much impact that has. There are some people, some percentage, which would heal just by that. But there are some people who may not heal entirely with that or may not get the result. But what we observe that after having done 1 or 2 months of this, then if we have, even if we have to take a masculine approach, the duration is much lesser. The dosage is much lesser. So the harm caused to the microbiome is much lesser. So maybe one may conclude from this that if there is not an emergency, then it's good to take a feminine approach first. And wait, do we need to go? I mean, as they say, that violence has to be the last step. Maybe this is what is the learning for us as doctors. So the take-home messages from this for us is that we are not alone. We are a universe with multiple voices. Microbiome paradigm is beautiful because it helps us be compassionate and understand the point of view of Ayurveda, homeopathy, and all systems and nutrition. Every choice that we make every moment impacts our microbiome. Taking care of the microbiome is important for both our physical and mental health. And if not an emergency, choose feminine approach first. Thank you. I would love to answer any questions and would love to take if Dr. Bijlani would like to add something to this. Thank you.
So there are a few questions in the chat box, if you can take those.
Can I ask a question?
Sure. Let me just go through the question first and in the chat box. How to maintain microbial diversity. Love the way you integrate the session. Right. So thank you, Sri Vidya. Yeah. So I think all these things that we talked about, I think the question has been answered already. It's the diet, emotions, taking care of electromagnetic fields, exercise, sleep. All those things we instinctively know help maintain us the microbial diversity. But yeah, I mean, being diverse also helps. There's no one correct thing. Doing different kinds of things, different kinds of environments, different kinds of foods is also very helpful. Can change in help in diet help a case? So the answer is a big yes. A big yes. How very often we feel depression is all about our emotions or our life situation. But let me tell you very clearly, depression is a lot of phlegm in the brain. Depression is a lot of insulin resistance in the brain. Depression is also a lot of dysbiosis in the gut. If you take care of that, if you detox yourself, the impact on depression is huge. This is not to take away the impact of emotions. It's actually both. But yeah, I mean, it's not just body or it's not just mind. It's both. How to keep inflammation in check? Well, see, again, it's the same thing as I talked about. Good bacteria produce these short chain fatty acids, which are anti-inflammatory in nature. So these are some of the food-related ways. The moment we improve our microbiome, but there is these herbs. If you're talking about, we know the allopathic approach to inflammation, but just to talk about a lot of these herbs, some of the simplest like curcumin or haldi, or talking about kalmeg, These are some herbs which have been shown to have beautiful microbiome balancing properties, which have been shown to have a wonderful anti-inflammatory effect on the body. And there are many such herbs. Ayurveda already knows about it. It's a lot of it is yet to translate into research studies. Yes, please, Asha ji and Manju ji, if you have any, Asha ji, you want to ask, please go ahead.
To ask about millets. About 3 years ago, we switched to having millets every day for one meal, so lunch. But over the last couple of days, this is the last less than a week, my body has not been, reacting well to the millets because it's been 3 years nonstop of having a variety of different kinds of millets, brown top, kodo, all of them, the pearl, roscoe, the little millet, barnyard, and so on. But the way that we've been making them may have a reason, may have an explanation for this. And I'd like your insights into that if you have any. We normally soak the millets for about, 7 to 8 hours and then drain the water and then cook them just like rice is cooked. And then have them with dal sabzi, whatever's made for lunch, and then dahi. Now, is there a different way that talked about gruel? Is there a different way that the millets should be cooked? Because you said something just, in your lecture today about leaving them to ferment. Now, we are not fermenting them. We're just soaking them and then draining the water, washing them, a couple of times in order to get rid of any oxalates, phytates, etc. And if I'm using those terms correctly, and then cooking them with water like rice is cooked. So is that the process, or should one be doing something else?
The question here is, if you were tolerating them earlier and suddenly something has changed in the past week or 10 days or a month, then there might be other things responsible for it also, right? Not just that the way you're cooking, might be something that you're going through in your health or in your gut state. Which might also be contributing. To give you a simple example, people go through COVID and suddenly their digestive capacity goes down. So the same food which they were able to tolerate well, they may not be able to tolerate. The other thing that might be, a wrong batch of food or the season correlation. I'm just trying to do a brainstorming because you were tolerating it and now you're not tolerating the same food. So I don't think it's about how you're cooking. It's more about something else, right? But to answer the question about the gruel a bit, so the way they talk about it is to, soak it a little bit and then churn it, create it into a soft thing, like we make a batter for idli, or, like we rice and dal, we churn it and then we leave it overnight to ferment. So the same way, you can just churn it and in a grinder and then just leave it overnight and then add vegetables to it and cook it like a khichdi or something like that. So that's one way which has a more strong probiotic effect. But thank you for bringing this up also, because we have to be careful sometimes with using these in certain body types. Like Dr. Bijlani will talk about Pitta body type or a heaty body type, which may not do well with too much of fermented foods. So those people also, so there's no one-stop solution for everyone. Some people may not do so well on too much of fermentation. And when we translate it into science, we see patients with food intolerances to yeast. And those are people who will get inflamed if we give them fermented food. So they largely need fresh food. And there are only a certain kind of fermented foods they can tolerate. And then there's another group which they do not tolerate. So, I think as far as your question is concerned, it would be inappropriate to just give you a very blanket answer. But this is one way of preparing a gruel. And there are other possibilities in your case why it is not tolerated. We often see that when we put patients on millet, some of them do not tolerate it. They feel they were happier on wheat because the जो तासीर है वो गर्म है जवार रागी बाजरा की तो sometimes that ushna virya in these millets can sometimes they can be a little dry in nature, so they can constipate some people. So people can get issues related to that, and so there we have to be careful in what kind of a millet we choose for them. Try out different things and see what works. Sometimes rice works better for some people, or combination of rice with millets works better for some people. So these are some thoughts to ponder. I wouldn't claim that I know it all. I'm also learning. So, these are some thoughts that come to me, Ashnaji. Ashaji, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Sri Vidya, you've asked about to share more on Sri Dhanya millets. So, yeah, I think there are, what I love to share about Sri Dhanya millets is that these are millets which can practically grow on rainwater. So, India's water table is going really down, and so is for the whole world. And if we move from rice and wheat to Sri Dhanya millets as a source of our diet, a lot of the water problems will be solved. That's one thing, how it can help the nature, how it can help us. I just explained it is a very important source of fiber, a very good detoxifier of the whole body through that fiber. And secondly, and we can use them in fermented form or a non-fermented form, and they can taste very good. To make an upma out of them tastes almost like a suji upma. So they can taste very good as well. So yeah, wonderful food options. There are many. You can just Google Sri Dhanya millets and a lot of those options will emerge for you, and you can try them out. Thank you. Is there a way to cure chronic fungal infections? Yes, there is. But see, as I said, I use a masculine and feminine approach. Although I'm an integrative medicine practitioner, I'm also learning. So there is still allopathy there, and then there are holistic practices. So we try to combine both. We do treat chronic fungal infections with this masculine and feminine approach, and we get good results.
Thank you very much.
Love to hear your comments. If there's anything you would like to add, Dr. Bijlani.
Before that, Mankul, there's just one more question in the chat box about food around curing depression. You can just take that question.
Okay. So what kind of foods help in curing depression? What kinds of food help in curing allergy causing frequent cold, throat pain, and cough? See, the foods which help in curing depression, again, depression can be very multi-pronged and different. But if we look at depression as a lot of phlegm in the body, and from that perspective, removing foods like dairy and refined carbohydrates is very helpful in such individuals, because that can create a lot of phlegm. Removing cold foods from diet, like just taking out the food from fridge and eating it immediately, can really help. Adding all the probiotics and prebiotics that we talked about are very helpful. Fruits are very helpful. Alkaline drinks are very helpful. Vegetable juices are very helpful. Alkaline drinks like aloe vera juice is very helpful. Drinking a vegetable juice, safed petha, gajar, chakundar, all these things are very helpful in detoxing the gut. Done over a period of time, all these things. Eating early in the night by 7 p.m. by sunset is really helpful, because that allows your liver detoxifies itself between 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in the night. And during that time, if we are sleeping and our gut is empty, then liver has the time to process all the physical and emotional toxins that it has accumulated in the day and over previous days. So if we eat early and we sleep early, your liver is more likely to process all the emotions, all the foods, and detoxify itself. So, I mean, that's how intermittent fasting is getting very popular. But it's so simplistic and natural in our culture, because we are supposed to eat by sunset and eat early a breakfast around 10, 8 to 10. So it naturally becomes into 14 to 16 hours of fasting. So that is also very helpful in depression. To go to one extreme, ketone diet, a kind of a keto diet. We should not label a diet, but a keto diet is wonderful to heal nervous system disorders, because the moment your body goes into ketones, like there is very little carbs, then it's like a mother, ketones, and they start healing the nervous system. The person enters into a very tranquil and calm state, which was discovered by most yogis, and that's why they love to fast, because they love those ketones at that calm state in which they have the best possible experiences. So a keto diet. But having said that, the other side of keto diet is the person is very stressed, and if a person does it for too long, it starts to break down one's own tissue. So do not do it on your own. Do it under guidance and do it for a short while. And choose carefully what you do on a keto diet. Thank you.
And just one more question: how to keep inflammation in check?
How to? But
Keep inflammation in check. Just,
I cannot hear. But eating late and sleeping late should also work for detoxification of liver. Is that the question?
That's the latest one. We can answer that first.
Okay, let me just go further up.
There's a question on foods to help cure allergies and colds.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah. Allergies and colds, yes. So, see, again, when it comes to allergies and colds, one, what we just discussed are the general things which will help anyone, because allergies and colds are also fueled by phlegm and insulin resistance. But at the same time, there may be specific food allergies in a person who is getting this. The most common allergy that we are seeing is milk. The second most common allergy we are seeing is wheat. The third most common allergy we are seeing is eggs. And there are many more, but it may be a combination of these. It may not be a food allergy. It may be a food intolerance. The difference is that allergies are you drink milk and you immediately get a rash. That's an allergy. Intolerance is that you drink milk and it triggers mild inflammation in your body, which stays for long, which happens after 2 to 3 days. And you drink milk every day and your body is inflamed. So your skin barrier or your respiratory barrier is broken down because of that constant bombardment of inflammation. And every little dust, every little microbe gets into the system. So food intolerances specific play a very common role in this. Foods which will help in this is, for very often people would do well on citrus, people who take a lot of vitamin C, because chronic stress also has a role in allergies. So a lot of citrus fruits and vitamin C based can help a certain subset of people. Then certain herbs, again, turmeric and muletti and other herbs, which can be very, very helpful. Tulsi can be very helpful, and all the desi nuskhas that we have. So it's a combination of following a healthy diet, all the things that we talked about, understanding what you are allergic or intolerant to, and thirdly, finding those herbs which work for you, which through these three things consistently followed for, and managing your stress, consistently followed for 3 to 6 months, and you will see that the allergy quotient comes down. And if required, there are sometimes we have to treat certain microbes that might also be required. And Ashaji, you also said that eating late and sleeping later should also work for. No, it doesn't, because we are linked to Earth and Sun, and our system is in a circadian rhythm. We may be sitting in a closed room, but that doesn't change. We are constantly interacting with Earth magnetic fields, Sun magnetic fields. At 2 a.m., your body starts making cortisol and stress hormones and starts doing other things. So the Chinese medicine acupuncture clock, 10 to 12 is liver time, 12 to 2 is gallbladder time. After 2 to 4 maybe is the lung time. So body now starts focusing on the lung. And then the large intestine, I might be getting the exact timings wrong. 3 to 5 is lung, 5 to 7 is large intestine. So, and 11 to 1 is liver, 11 to and 1 to 3 is gallbladder. So your body at that time is dealing with that. If you don't, you miss the bus. It cannot be that you, sleep. And that's what has happened to teenagers. They've lost their hair, they've lost their gallbladders. We've had so many teenagers have their gallbladders removed. They've been sleeping late, and it's a sad story. But yes, I think we all need to face the truth. Yes, itching
If
after.
there are no more questions, so I'll just make a few concluding remarks. It was really heartening to see how modern medicine is changing. And that's the beauty of scientific medicine, because it's always willing to learn more. And on one hand, we have a new journal, not very new, but probably 10-year-old, Microbiome. And on the other hand, classical journals like the Journal of Microbiology have started carrying articles on how electromagnetic radiation might affect the microbiome. So for a person like me, I mean, to think of these things was itself impossible a few decades back. And now we see it happening. And clearly, I mean, the way you talked shows how it is leading to a convergence of modern medicine with ancient Indian wisdom. And this would certainly be in the overall interests of mankind. Also, one of the things that impressed me was how a little bit can make a lot of difference. We feel that these are things which act over long term, but just a change in the diet for one day, how much impact it can have, and how much impact just one course of antibiotics can have. I mean, these are things which make us a little more conscious of not dismissing as something that, well, once in a while it will not matter, one day doesn't matter, one course of antibiotics doesn't matter, and so on. Another important thing that I noticed was that on one hand, a healthy lifestyle can promote the growth of healthy bacteria. Healthy lifestyle, including, of course, the psychological factors, can promote the growth of healthy bacteria. It can not only do that, it can also make some of the unfriendly ones behave in a friendly manner. That was the very interesting part. So just as in yoga, we talk about transformation of those parts of the being which are far from perfect. In the same way, these far from perfect bacteria that we have can also be transformed towards a perfect version just by what we do and the way we think and we look at them. And our thinking also affects them. And also because of all the service that they are doing to us, because most of them are friendly. The unfriendly ones are relatively few. And if the unfriendly ones take over, it is because of the mistakes that we make. It's not the fault of the germs. So therefore, it's really important that we express our gratitude to the bacteria, as you said, and of course, gratitude to you for making us conscious that we should have that sense of gratitude to the microorganisms. Thank you, Mankul.
And then this brings us to the end of today's session. Thank you so much, Dr. Mankul, for sharing your knowledge. And we end with a moment of silence.